What?
We're going to have to bring this one back after the break. I'm so sorry.
Okay. That's fine.
This woman went through so much, and I am interested in hearing about it because the fact that she felt that she needed to document that is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that she did. This is going to be a 5-hour news... 5 hour? Good heavens. This is going to be a 5-minute newscast, and hopefully, maybe, we'll find somebody reporting a little bit of good news today. Because you know what? You really need to get that every so often. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. And this is Fate Mac Radio. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and we will be right back with Andrew Smith.
NPR podcasts are now available on every platform. Check out all our shows at npr.org/podcasts. That's npr.org/podcasts.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. The partial government shutdown continues with no end in sight as both sides remain gridlocked over President Trump's request for more than $5 billion to fund a border wall. The shutdown, the longest in U.S. history, is taking a toll on workers. Keith Polite, a security officer at the Smithsonian's National Museum of the American Indian in New York, says as a subcontracted federal employee, he won't get back pay. He says he's worried about rent, food, and other necessities.
The bills are piling up during the shutdown. Last week, I used all of my sick days that I have left, and it's only January.
Meanwhile, the shutdown could also impact the U.S. jobs picture. The closure will likely complicate the government's January employment surveys. The unemployment rate currently stands at 3.9%, but that could go higher this month. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says action will be taken against Republican Congressman Steve King for comments he made about white supremacy to the New York Times. NPR's Shannon Van Zandt reports.
The New York Times reported King said he does not understand why the phrases white nationalist and white supremacist are offensive, and that he supports immigrants entering the U.S. legally if they assimilate to an American culture based on European white values. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy condemned King's comments on Face the Nation.
That language has no place in America. That is not the America I know, and it's most definitely not the party of Lincoln.
He said he'll have serious conversations with King on his future in the Republican Party. King has released a statement saying he in fact rejects the labels and ideology of white nationalism and supremacy. Shannon Van Zandt, NPR News, Washington.
Iran's foreign minister has arrived in Iraq just 4 days after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited Baghdad on a tour aimed at isolating Iran. NPR's Jane Araf has more from Baghdad.
The Iranian foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif, arrived in Baghdad with a large trade delegation on a multi-day visit. Pompeo visited Iraq earlier this week for talks that included trying to persuade the Iraqi government to go along with U.S. sanctions against Iran. Iraq's foreign minister said he and Zarif discussed the unilateral sanctions. The Iraqi foreign minister has said Iraq does not have to adhere to them. Pompeo, though, during his visit, pressed Iraqi leaders to stop importing Iranian electricity and fuel. Iraq is trying to balance relations between the U.S. and Iran, its neighbor and one of its biggest trading partners. The Iranian foreign minister plans to take the trade delegation to the Kurdistan region and to the south of Iraq during his visit. Jane Araf, NPR News, Baghdad.
It's getting cheaper to fill up your car. The average price of a gallon of regular gas is down 12 cents over the past 3 weeks to $2.31 a gallon. The Lundberg survey says that's down 66 cents over the past 3.5 months. This is NPR. In Northern California, dozens of businesses are reopening after November's deadly campfire. Basanya Hudson of member station KQED reports some are having trouble staying open.
People have been moving back into the towns of Paradise and Magalia, which were largely leveled by the fire. They're living in trailers and surviving homes. But so far, it seems like there aren't enough people to support businesses. Locke Kabahome reopened his Paradise Thai restaurant on Friday. He's gotten around 20 customers a day, far below the 120 he usually gets.
We got nowhere to go, so we decided to stay here for a while. Let's see how everybody react to it.
The Paradise Ridge Chamber of Commerce is trying to help these businesses stay afloat. They're maintaining a list of those that have reopened and where, as many have relocated following the fire. For NPR News, I'm Sonia Hudson in Paradise.
Pro football history was made today as a woman officiated at an NFL playoff game for the first time. Sarah Thomas was on the field for the LA Chargers versus the New England Patriots game. The Patriots won 41-28. Also today, the Philadelphia Eagles are playing the New Orleans Saints. The score at last check, 17-14 Saints in the fourth quarter. At the weekend box office, Kevin Hart's The Upside took the top spot with an estimated $19 million in ticket sales. That strong performance pushed Aquaman to second place with $17 million, although it's already made more than $1 billion worldwide. I'm Janine Herbst, NPR News in Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. We are the fastest growing radio network going this week, at least. We have added 5 shows. I am so excited. I think it's going to be a fantastic thing for us. And tonight I'm featuring the Maliks, Jennifer and Kevin, and Paraversal Universe. I am excited to bring this show. We have a long history together. They are fantastic paralegends and researchers, and they will be airing on Fridays beginning the 1st of February. You will not want to miss this show. Now, I am going to tell you that I am back with my guest, Andrew Smith, and we are discussing various experiences that happened in Braxton, West Virginia, relevant to the Flatwoods Monster, but expanding on that somewhat, aren't we, Andrew? Well, I am ears wide open. I'm excited to hear this. I know that some of this is fairly disturbing, so I want to warn our listeners that Andrew has let me know that. So, that being said, would you mind sharing some more?
Audra Harper, in the last segment, talking about her story that she had that's eerily similar to the Flatwoods Monster that took place just several days before the famous September 12th incident. She's had several unexplained things happen in her life, and what I was talking about just before the break was there was a night when her husband was home, and from the house they could hear what sounded like someone going through their outbuilding. And of course, at this time, they were more concerned with maybe just somebody stealing rather than anything, crazy happening. So he just went out on his front porch, pointed the shotgun up into the sky and shot it. And rather than seeing, people run away from the woods just behind this outbuilding, a craft seemed to shoot straight up into the sky.
Oh, my word.
Vanish. Whether it was a craft, maybe it was a light. But again, something that they could not, tell you what it was, and that moved quickly and silently, left their property and zoomed off. And to give you a little bit of context about Heaters, West Virginia, like I said, it's a pretty secluded and pretty underdeveloped as far as, buildings, and it would pretty much be sparsely spaced residential areas and farms, and that's it. And with everything being connected by, especially at this time, dirt roads, gravel roads, so a lot of seclusion and a lot of darkness. So, if you want to see something going on up in the night sky, Heaters, West Virginia in 1950s would have been the place to do it. And really all of Braxton County at that time. But Heaters was, especially secluded. So this lady Audra that lived in that area her whole life, she had experienced several unexplained phenomena, and enough to where she ended up filling up 3 journal pages with it, and that's three pages with not an incredible amount of detail, like just sort of enough to give you the gist of every story. And there's probably 5 or 6 different occasions that she outlines in that story, the most expansive of which that she gives is her experience that happened prior to the Flatwoods Monster experience that seems to be, related.
Well, did she have an opinion on what she thought was following them that day?
If she did, she didn't ever tell her granddaughter about it that I know, or put it in these papers. Like I said, she would actually sat down to type these papers in the 1960s, so plenty of time to have reflected on it. And again, either maybe when she was writing it, she was intentionally being sparse just to sort of get it all out, or that's all she could say. Maybe that's all she was comfortable saying. That's all she knew, and maybe she didn't like to conjecture. But as far as I know, she never gave an explanation of what she thought she experienced.
That's fascinating. I don't know that I would have even ridden in a car going back without weapons.
Yeah.
She was very brave.
Yeah. And what's interesting, too, is, how I talk about, her friends and family knew these stories, but even still, not everybody that she knew even knew these stories, because often I get people that come to the museum who just are coming just to check it out, that either live here or grew up in this area, and they come here and they're shocked to see a picture of Audra Harper on display because they know her, and they immediately think, what is her picture doing here? And then we've got a photocopy of her experience that's on display along with her photo, and they read it and they're just spellbound and in shock because they can't believe this happened to Audra, and they knew her for years and never knew these stories. So even a lot of people that she knew, classmates, former classmates, former coworkers, things like that. So it's still, I don't know if it was an element of not, of knowing that you weren't going to be able to tell people exactly what you saw. So because of that, maybe there might be a little bit of embarrassment to even bring it up, or maybe you get, you talk to somebody about something so many times that you just get sick of talking about it. I don't know what does that, but so many people have came in who know Audra and had no idea that she had ever experienced anything unusual.
That's interesting because, as we were talking during the break, small communities, generational communities that are still small.
Yes. And
you would think that if one person knew it, then everybody would know it.
Right.
She had some very good friends that chose not to discuss something unless she wanted to, didn't she?
Right. Well, it's either that, or there might be this thing where maybe in certain circles something is known so well or talked about so much that once you get into another circle, maybe you might not even think it's noteworthy anymore. It's not news anymore. Maybe you might assume, oh, well, they would know that, and then they just don't. Because it's funny, it's completely unrelated, but, I've had that happen to me several times where I tell somebody something just offhanded, like it's just a fact and they should know it. And, they whirl around in their seat and look at me, like, what did you just say? And so I tell them, they're like, oh, I didn't know that. How did you not know that? We've been doing this for a year and you don't know that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. So, it could just be, some of that too. It's hard to say.
Well, I'm going to tell you that this sleepy little community in my mind of Braxton County, West Virginia, is not so much so.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just curious if I might have missed something. Have there been further ufology-related incidents that you're aware of?
If there have been, I don't know many. There's only one thing that I know of, and that's because there was a gentleman that came and visited me who lives in the Ireland area of West Virginia, which is kind of like right around the border of Braxton, and it's kind of secluded as well.